Story title: Double Wedding Disaster. Friends ruined their wedding, but not ours. I, 38, male, have been married to Mike, 35, male, for 3 years and together for 12 years. We are very quiet, nerdy, nature-loving guys, not into flashy displays or drama at all. It was the tail end of the pandemic, and since the borders were partially open, we decided to road trip to Gibraltar and elope. The pandemic was a great excuse not to invite anyone to our wedding and just do what we wanted. When we told our lesbian friends Di, 45, female, and Anne, 60, female, what we were doing, they decided on the spot that we were going to have a double wedding and immediately started taking over, suggesting a bunch of trashy, expensive things we didn't want. This is the story of how they attempted to ruin our wedding, and only ruined theirs. We initially decided that we'd get a rental car together and split it 4 ways, with Mike and Di splitting the driving. A month before the wedding, Di and Anne decided it'd be cheaper to take the train, well, 6 trains, actually, across 3 countries. I immediately said no, and it turned out Di didn't even have her driver's license and had been driving illegally for years. Mike offered to do all the driving if they split the rental car with us. They declined because it was too expensive and took the train instead. Obviously, it went terribly for them. Trains were canceled, tickets were lost, and they missed out on an entire night in Gibraltar because they were stuck at a random train station in the Spanish countryside. Mike and I had a wonderful road trip and spent a magical night in an Airbnb in Cartagena on the way. Their train tickets cost more than half of the rental car. We initially agreed to get a really fancy Airbnb in Gibraltar with a hot tub and all that stuff. Split 4 ways, we could get something really nice. Well, Anne decided she wanted a real hotel and pulled out of the Airbnb plan. I found a gorgeous little 1-bedroom place for us, with a hot tub and a view of the sea. Di and Anne forgot to book a real hotel and ended up in a freaking awful place by the port, like a place for merchant sailors to crash while they're in port. It was on a busy roundabout opposite Burger King. There was no bath, no balcony, and it was basic AF. It was more expensive than our lovely place. They got no sleep because of the drunk sailors and traffic noise. They didn't even get any towels provided. The night before the wedding, we met for dinner. They'd barely been in Gibraltar for 2 hours, whereas we'd been relaxing since the day before. At dinner, things were tense, but Di was really trying. At some point, she signaled to the restaurant host, and the lady came over with a super fancy VIP bucket with champagne on ice. She popped the cork and gave it to Di, who handed it to Anne, saying, "Just like the one I gave you in New York, baby." It was clearly supposed to be a romantic moment. Anne refused the cork, and we all smiled nervously to try and smooth things over. The host poured 2 glasses of the champagne and gave the glasses to Di and Anne. Anne took a sip and immediately spat it out, announcing loudly, "It's corked." We all tried the champagne and told her it was delicious. Mike and I don't really drink, but we know what champagne tastes like. Anne insisted the champagne was corked and loudly announced they wouldn't be paying for it. The host was pissed, and I understood why when she told us it was a 750 pounds bottle. She threatened to call the police, so Di sheepishly paid for it. Anne sulked the rest of the night. I was so embarrassed, and our whole evening was spoiled. When we got back to our Airbnb to take a bubble bath and eat Jaffa cakes, I told Mike there was no way I was going to allow them to ruin another minute of our trip, but if they wanted to ruin theirs, that wasn't my problem. The actual weddings went off okay, apart from the fact they were still drunk from the night before. The registry office was nice, and I married the man of my dreams. Afterwards, we bought them brunch, to soak up the booze, and faithfully walked them around the park, taking lovely photos of them. Di had her finger over the lens of every picture she took of us. When we were done, they suggested we all go to the pub and get wasted, as if. We dropped them off at the pub and went our separate ways. I was honest and just told them, I want to be alone with my husband. They couldn't really argue with that. The wedding dinner. Mike, Di, and I all had fairly casual preferences for a restaurant for the wedding dinner, but Anne insisted on a fine dining fish restaurant that didn't even serve dessert. I outright refused. I don't eat fish at all. And Anne was insisting on the fish restaurant, so we decided not to meet up. Anne also tried to convince us to chip in 200 pounds for a custom wedding cake to get delivered to the restaurant, but we said hell no. Mike and I went to the best steakhouse in Gibraltar. I had a 1.2 kilo steak and an amazing cheesecake for dessert. We had a lovely time, and the waitstaff went out of their way to spoil us. Around 8 p.m., they messaged us, "Where are you?" And we ignored the message. As it turned out, Anne forgot to make reservations, and the fish restaurant was fully booked, but they couldn't leave and go somewhere else because they had to wait for the cake to be delivered. They ended up taking the cake back to their shitty hotel and eating it with their credit cards because they didn't even have cutlery and plates in their room. They got hammered that night on supermarket vodka. Mike and I had the perfect evening. We got a taxi home, smoked weed on our balcony, watched the stars, and kissed for hours. The next day, Mike and I set out for a day of hiking in the UNESCO World Heritage Site National Park. It was the best day ever. Mike got robbed and bitten by a monkey, which was effing hilarious. We ate a full English breakfast in the Sky restaurant and explored St. Michael's Cave. Unforgettable memories were made. Di and Anne fought, decided it was Gibraltar's fault, and spontaneously decided to leave. They booked a beach resort up the coast somewhere in Spain and headed on foot to the train station. The trains were all messed up. They got stranded somewhere in Spain with all their luggage, and it took them 14 hours to get to the resort. They arrived at 11 p.m. and were checking out the next morning. Mike and I spent a few more nights enjoying our honeymoon and then road-tripped home. We stayed in the same little place in Cartagena on the way back, and the hosts threw us a little surprise party. It was magical. Di and Anne got stranded again on the way home, lost half their luggage, and caught COVID. Our next story is: older lady tried to make me feel bad about having a baby. I made her feel bad for sticking her nose in other people's business. Our mom died during childbirth. Apologies in advance for the long read. I'm very tired and haven't really talked to anyone in over a week, so I'm word vomiting on the internet and hoping it makes sense lol. One thing I've learned to accept in life is that I will forever be mistaken as younger than I am. I loved it as a kid. There were plenty of situations I took advantage of, like getting away with the kids under certain age, eat free for way longer than most, but as I've gotten older, it's gotten exhausting having to constantly prove my age. Most people don't believe it until they see my ID, which has gotten me into a few unique situations. I've gotten used to it and try to be understanding, laughing it off afterward and calling it good. I mean, I get it. I'm 20 and honestly look the exact same as I did when I was 13 or 14. It also doesn't help that I'm 5 feet 0 inches, 153 centimeters, so yeah, it's easy to mistake me as a child or at least a teenager. Anyway, I recently had a baby, a beautiful little girl. It was an amazing experience, and I adore her. She's my entire world. That being said, it was also very rough on my body, one of the many downsides of being as small as I am Lowell. I had a 4th degree tear, which essentially means I tore from hole to hole, and there was a lot of bleeding. I ended up needing a blood transfusion, spent an extra day in the hospital, and am still recovering from the whole ordeal. This fun little incident took place on our way home from the hospital. I had originally planned to breastfeed, but because of everything that happened and the fact that I wasn't really in a state to do so, we agreed that formula was the way to go. Just one slight issue with that: we had no formula at home. Since we didn't think we'd need it, we hadn't bought any in advance. While the hospital was nice enough to give us a few quick bottles, they obviously wouldn't last. I had also decided I needed to get some D-pens, adult diapers, as I was having bladder control issues. My husband had to work the next day, and I was definitely not in any state to go anywhere by myself for at least the next few days, meaning we needed to make a quick stop by the grocery store sooner rather than later. Once inside, it quickly became clear that I was not doing well. I was shaking from the pain and exhaustion, but I didn't want to return to the car. As much as I love my husband, I don't really trust him to do the shopping. It's not that he can't. I'm just the type that tries to find the best deal, while he's the type to just grab whatever and call it good. For both our sakes, I usually handle the shopping. Luckily, I had spent the drive searching the store's app for the exact items I wanted, which meant I could show my husband what to grab as well as their locations. We decided I'd sit with the baby on a bench by the bathrooms while he collected the items, return for me to make sure they were the right ones, and then we could leave. Should have been simple enough, right? Nope, at least not for me. Side note, I just wanted to mention I adore my husband and appreciate the patience and understanding he has for me. He's amazing, and I couldn't ask for a better, more loving partner. I'm truly blessed. My husband had been gone less than a minute when some older lady started walking toward the bathrooms. I assume she originally planned to use them but got sidetracked by my baby, as she walked right past them and toward me. I didn't really think much of it at first since I know it's kinda normal mom thing to have people, especially older folks, fawn over them, which is what I was expecting to happen. As I'm sure you can guess, that's not at all what happened. I smiled at her, excited to show off my adorable newborn for the first time. I even turned the car seat she was in toward this woman so she could get a better look. Instead of smiling back at me, she frowned. And instead of cooing over how precious she looked, this lady started lecturing me about teen pregnancies and premarital sex. She told me I should be ashamed of myself, that the youth of today is ruining America, how I should pray to God for forgiveness, and a bunch of other stuff I honestly don't remember. I was shocked into silence at first, which she took as an invitation to keep going. Finally, she asked me, "Are your parents embarrassed to have a S for a daughter?" Whoa. Okay, first off, there are so many other situations this could be. What if I'm just babysitting? What if this baby was my sister and I was watching her while our mom or dad used the bathroom? Or maybe she's my cousin. This lady had literally no idea what the situation was. She just decided she knew and needed to say something about it. It's only after this event that I realized just how messed up her actions were, since in the moment, I was just taken aback by her audacity. In this moment, I was in a lot of pain, exhausted, and flooded with hormones. I think that's the reason I reacted the way I did. I'm not confrontational, nor am I the one who usually has witty comebacks or quick responses in stressful situations. That's my husband. Normally, I'd just tell her I'm 20, married, and to mind her own business before frantically texting him. Normally. Instead, I looked her dead in the eyes, the most deadpan look on my face, and calmly told her, "This is my baby sister. Our mom just died giving birth to her." Her eyes went wide, her face turned red, and she gaped at me like a fish for a moment before quickly turning around and walking away. I immediately started shaking and crying. Luckily, I didn't have to wait long for my husband's return, who immediately freaked out when he saw the state I was in. I just quickly checked that he got the right items, which he did because he's amazing, and told him to pay for them so we could go home and cuddle our baby. Once we were doing exactly that, I told him what happened, and while he was still worried about me, he said he was proud of me for putting that BTCH in her place. Now I just have to convince him that he doesn't need to stand guard over me whenever we leave the house. Next story is, our neighbors have been having pool parties at our pool while we are not home for years. A few years ago, my husband and I purchased a house with a pool. Now, we are acquainted with most of our neighbors, but definitely not close friends with any of them. They all seem nice, but, well, we just don't have much in common other than where we live. Next door to the right is a family of 6, twin daughters attending the local university, a high school-age son, and a young elementary school-age daughter, maybe in 1st or 2nd grade, along with the parents. Now, normally, we open the pool in early May and leave it open until the end of October. But this year, our weather was off, and we had a very cool and very wet month of May, and then June went straight to 100+ temperatures. I am currently on a medication that makes it difficult for me to tolerate being in the sun and heat for an extended time. Plus, we have been helping 2 extended family members who are having health issues. So, because of this, we haven't had our pool opened yet this year. Normally, we go to the family lake house for a week during each of the 3 major holidays, but we didn't go for Memorial Day because there was flooding around the lake this year. And because a family member was just discharged from the hospital yesterday, and since July 4th was a Thursday this year, we decided to stay home this week and be available to help this family member. Now, several times in June, the little girl next door has seen either my husband or myself outside, and she has asked when we are opening the pool. We first told her maybe later, but the last time, yesterday, she asked, and I said we are probably just not going to open it this year. She started crying. Now, we have never had any of the neighbors over to use our pool, so I didn't understand why she was crying over us not opening our pool. Well, I spoke with the neighbor on the left later, and apparently, our neighbors on the right have been having a small family party at our pool every 4th of July when we are gone. They have always cleaned up really well afterward, and because we have scheduled pool maintenance and weekly yard service, occasionally, things are moved around in our yard, and we never thought much about it. The neighbor on the left thought we had given the other neighbors permission to use our pool. We did give them permission to retrieve any balls or toys that ended up in our yard, but never permission to use our pool, especially when we are not at home. We have a special latch on the gate, and my husband did show the neighbor how to open the gate to retrieve his kids' toys. So now my husband, who loves gadgets, is going to have several more cameras installed around the exterior of our house, covering the gate and pool area, and have the gate latch made so we can grant remote access for the pool service and yardmen. Luckily, we have a friend who does cameras and home automation systems. I'm annoyed our neighbors have been using our pool without permission, but my husband is happy I'm letting him get more gadgets around the house. Now, do we confront the neighbors and let them know we know they have been using our pool, or just wait and see if they say anything about our new security cameras? OP posted an update after 5 months. I didn't expect the post to blow up like it has, and certainly didn't expect over 1,000 comments. I have tried to read them all, and some were very creative and amusing to read. First of all, we don't want to hurt anyone or alienate our neighbors. We just don't want people using our pool without permission, and we don't want the liability associated with this activity. A few things I feel I need to clarify. Yes, our backyard is fully fenced in with 2 gates. One in the back is double locked from the inside. The side gate, on the side of the garage nearest the neighbors in question, has a double latch that you have to reach over the top and find, not 1, but 2 releases to open the gate. There is also an auto close that automatically closes the gate and latches it. I personally can't open the gate from the outside of the fence because I can't reach over that far to reach the 2 latches. The previous owner put this in, and it has worked well for our yard crew and the pool maintenance people. We do have some cameras, a doorbell camera and a camera over our garage area. The garage camera picks up if someone goes toward the gate from the front, but we didn't want to invade our neighbor's privacy by recording their side garage door and gate to their backyard. We even shared the camera angle with them because we didn't want them to be concerned about us recording their children or their comings and goings. I guess we were more concerned about their privacy than they were about ours. Anyway, the update. Thursday, July 4th morning, I was loading a few things in my vehicle to take to my cousin, who just got out of the hospital. The neighbor/husband, who has been gone a lot for work recently, saw me and came over and asked if I was getting a late start going to the lake. I let him know that we were staying home because we are helping my cousin, who just got out of the hospital. He asked if we were going to be home all weekend. I said yes, one or both of us would be around all weekend. He quickly wished me a happy 4th and went home. I went back in to grab my purse and tell my husband about the conversation with the neighbor before I left. When I got home, our friend Mike was there. Mike does security cameras and home automation systems, gadgets, and my husband loves gadgets. Mike and my husband have a plan for multiple cameras and several gadgets, some of which involve us going ahead and having the pool opened. I agreed to all but one of the new cameras and almost all of the gadgets. I think my husband put some in the plan knowing he would have to give up a few of them. Mike also suggested talking to our homeowner's insurance agent because we might be able to get some discounts with the security upgrades. So, on Friday the 5th, Tom, our insurance guy, comes over, and Mike is back with a drone to help him find the best camera positions. Really, I think he just wanted to show off his gadget. So, husband, Mike, and Tom are outside and all around the house and occasionally inside. I look outside every so often, and at different times, other neighbors have come outside and down to our end of the street. So, neighbors want to know what is going on. Husband tells them we are concerned that someone or several people may have used our pool without our permission while we were not home. It turns out that 2 different neighbors had witnessed some friends of the neighbor children come over last year, and they and the neighbor twins had gone into our backyard. One neighbor even asked the girls, and they claimed that we let them come over all the time and use our pool. So, at this point, husband and Tom discuss this, and Tom says we should send a registered letter to the neighbors rescinding our permission for them to enter our fenced-in backyard. So, before Mike and Tom left, the neighbors on the right, pool party neighbors, came home, both husband and wife. My husband asks to talk to them, and with Mike and Tom as witnesses, he tells them that for insurance reasons, we are rescinding our permission for them or any member of their family or guests to enter our fenced-in backyard, and we will be sending a registered letter stating this as requested by our insurance. Husband never accused them or their children of using our pool but said we had reason to believe that, in the past, our pool had been used without our permission. He did say that we had reason to believe that their older children might be friends with someone who has been in our pool. Husband also told them that we are changing the gate to have an automated lock and cameras will be installed around the pool area. He also assured them that we avoid the cameras pointed at their windows or backyard. Husband indicated that we were taking these measures to hopefully lower our homeowners' insurance rates. Husband said that they exchanged a few looks between them, but they said they understood and appreciated the heads up. So, hopefully, this saga is over, but if there are any other updates,
that's it for now.
I will try and post
See you
them
in the next post.